industry, or that industry is the part of economic development or industrial development, that development is agreeable if it is the sustainable development. It is nothing but the interpretation of these entries of different lists, state list, union list, or concurrent list. In this Vellore Citizens Welfare Union Forum case, Supreme Court decided that development is legal if it is done as sustainable development. What is sustainable development? The very meaningful and useful example is, if to develop a factory, a manufacturing unit of the industry, if industrialist is going to build up that particular unit on a land whereby 7 or 50 trees are present on that land, but if it is necessary to build up a unit there, for that building, these trees will definitely be cut down by the industrialist. This is not appropriate until they are grown up somewhere else. If 5 trees are cut by one person, 5 other trees must be grown by the same person is called the concept of sustainable development. Development is valid, is necessary, but if it affects adversely to the environment, that development is not called the sustainable development. We are using plastics for each and every half an hour. There is a need of a plastic bag. Instead of using plastic bag, if we ask for a paper bag which is recyclable, then it will reduce the garbage of this globe, which will ultimately safeguard the environment of this globe. So this is called the sustainable development. In this Vellore Citizens case also, Supreme Court discussed the principle of polluters pay, which means the person who is responsible for pollution is having liability to pay compensation to the victims. If polluter is obliged, if polluter is under the obligation of the society by way of this pollution, he has to pay compensation to the victims, to the effectors who are the victims of this pollution. The third principle discussed by the same case is precautionary principle. Dear friend, whether it is not advisable to take precautions rather than to cure it. If we take steps for prevention of the nature, definitely the healing is simultaneously going on at the same time of suffering of environment. So precautionary principle is also declared by Supreme Court while discussing this Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum. This union list, after that, state list also provides some topics for which state legislature can enact law. These entries are entry number 6, which speaks about public health and sanitation. Entry number 14, which speaks about agriculture, protection against pests and prevention of plant disease. Agriculture and protection against pests and preservation of plant disease. Entry number 14 speaks, due to the increasing number of population, people will need more food, people will need more space to live, more land to live. But we cannot produce land. Land is available in the limited area. as per the globe. We cannot form or we cannot produce land artificially. Instead of that, we have started to produce food artificially. Nowadays, pills, medicines are available. Instead of eating food, one can if swallow that particular pill that will provide the food for the body instead of the food. Medicine are now equivalent to food just to meet the necessity of food and the available source of food. To meet this necessity and supply, demand and supply, what we are doing? We are using the chemical fertilizers. These fertilizers expands or produce more things than as the natural fertilizers. So these kind of fertilizers, if are used regularly, it will reduce the fertility of land. So land should also be protected by this kind of agricultural activity. This particular entry 14 speaks about agriculture and protection from pests and protection of plants by this pest or pest control or the chemicals used for this kind of infection. Then, dear friend, entry number 15 speaks about preservation and prevention of animal disease. Dear friend, animal is also a part of environment, as environment includes man, land, water, air, the forest, the plants, species, flora, fauna and space. So environment includes probably 12 to 13 areas. Combinedly it is known as environment. So animal is also the part of environment. For the protection of animal from disease, entry number 15 speaks directly for preservation and prevention of animal disease. The next entry is pertaining to water as enumerated in number 17 and fisheries as prescribed under 21, as these two are also the subject matter of state. State has power to enact any law, to pass any legislation relating to public health and sanitation, agriculture, protection against pest and prevention of plant disease, preservation and prevention of animal disease, water and fisheries. These are the 5 points on which state can directly enact any law for the sake of these 5 entries. Thereafter, the concurrent list come. This concurrent list speaks about as per entry number 17 capital A, forest. It is the duty of state as well as union to take steps for the preservation and protection of forest. Then entry number 17 capital B prescribes protection of wild animals and birds, as some species of wild animals and birds are very rare. Some species of this part of environment are very beautiful. Some species of this particular area of environment are very costly, not easily available, not easily watchable. So they are very costly to see, to use them. What we are using for the fashion purpose, if a person is wearing fur coat, a fur of a rabbit, a fur of a tiger, a fur of a leopard, it puts some impression on others' mind that the person is wearing so costly coat. How impressive it is. Merely to follow the rules of fashion, what we are doing, we are affecting the environment. To wear a one leopard skin coat, one leopard must be killed. If you just imagine on earth, if 1 lakh people are having these kind of fashion accessories, how many animals were killed just to satisfy their hunger for fashion? So to protect these kind of wild animals and birds, this entry 17 capital B speaks for protection of wild animals and birds. Factories, industry is covered by state, forest and factories are covered by concurrent list through entry number 36, due to which anyone, either union or state, can enact any law or anything relating to preservation and prevention for the pollution of the environment. If factories are covered by concurrent list, both state and union can pass law for preservation of environment relating to factories. The regulations for running a factory in one particular area, which area are proper for installation of unit as factory, whether it is situated outside the residential area. These are the guidelines to be followed by the person who wants to establish the factory. This subject falls under concurrent list, so both are having the authority to pass and elect. And lastly, as per entry number 29, preservation of the extension from one state to another of infection or contagious diseases or pests affecting man, animals or plants. It is the duty of union and state to provide protection to its citizens from the health point of view, to protect all the subjects of the state from contagious disease which can be easily spread out from one person to another. It is called contagious diseases. The next is the diseases which are considered as infection. This infection or contagious diseases can be amongst animals, amongst men or amongst the plants. Not only men or human beings are protected, but if animals are having these kind of infection, they are also being protected by this particular entry 21. Example is bird flu. By eating that kind of infected bird, if person is of non-vegetarian kind of person and if he eats this kind of infected body of a bird, that will generate the infection in his body also. So infection is done from the body of a bird to a man. It is called infectionable. It is called contagious disease. This kind of contagious disease, if they are prevailing amongst men, animal or plants, so plants or trees are also having safeguarded by the laws of the land. By these three lists, environment protection is done by the Indian Constitution for or relating to India, Indian territory. If we look into the next thing or the topic is the international obligation. See, only Indian Constitution is not the only source which speaks for the protection of environment, but there are some international obligations also for India for the protection of environment. As we have discussed earlier, Stockholm Declaration, United Nations Declaration on Human Rights. There are so many declarations under which the law has or the participation by India is done at international level for protection of environment. This kind of international obligations are also discussed by Indian Constitution. Our Indian Constitution also speaks through its Article 51 that the state shall endeavour to a. promote international peace and security, b. to maintain just and honourable relations between nations, and c. foster respect for international law and treaty obligations in the dealings of organized people with one another. Just precisely for these three provisions of Article 51, it is the endeavour of state, as Article 51 is contained under Part 4 of the Constitution, named or titled as Directive Principles of State Policy. They are not enforceable by the court of the nation as per the provision of Article 37. So it is the duty or an endeavour of a state to promote international peace and security with reference to Stockholm Declaration, with reference to Rio de Janeiro Convention named as Earth Summit, climate change. These are the conventions or covenants held at international platform whereby India is one of the signatories of these kind of convention. Merely by